Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar. This webinar is covering what does it mean for businesses regarding the proposed changes to the short form California Prop 65 warnings. Next slide. Our agenda will include an overview of California Proposition 65 and also what are the existing warning rules for California Prop 65. And what are the proposed changes that OEHHA is planning for this short form warning label? And how does it impact businesses? And what are some steps that businesses could take to avoid such types of surprises in the future? Finally, we'll wrap up with some latest updates and conclude. Next slide. Some housekeeping. Everyone but speakers are muted at this time. This meeting is being recorded and will be shared after the session. There will be a survey at the end of this webinar. If you could kindly fill it out and help us to explain in more detail some ways that we can improve our webinars. Also, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to use the comments section in the webinar, and we will get to you if we have time at the end, or we will follow up directly with you and your comments after the session. Next slide. Your speakers today are myself, Karen Neal Strobel. I am a supply chain expert with over 35 years in the industry in a variety of roles. Also, we have Sri Venakata, who is our head of regulatory compliance. And we also have our Prop 65 expert, Pavitra, to speak on these topics. Next slide. And who are we? We are APA Engineering. We have over 20 years experience in a variety of areas, including compliance, engineering, sourcing, and software. We cover customers throughout the US, Europe, and Asia Pacific. We have a variety of certifications for quality and solutions. We have over 350 customers that utilize our solutions that include compliance-related items such as REACH, ROAS, conflict minerals, and of course, California Prop 65. And now for a quick overview of California Proposition 65. Next slide. Prop 65 has its roots back in 1986 with the California Safe Drinking Water and Toxic Enforcement Act. This was intended to help California residents to better understand chemical exposure to certain things that may cause cancer, birth defects, or other types of reproductive harm. These chemicals could be present in the products that Californians purchase and use, and this helps the Californians to make better decisions regarding whether or not they wish to be exposed to these types of chemicals. These substances are regulated and enforced by OEHHA, and any substance that is shows a study of having a 1 in 100,000 or greater chance of causing cancer or reproductive harm over a 70-year period should be part of the Prop 65 registration. The lists of chemicals, which I believe is over 900 now, from OEHHA is updated at least once a year, although OEHHA is updating them quite frequently recently, as much as quarterly. Next slide. The list that OEHHA maintains has a wide range of both naturally occurring and synthetic chemicals. These can include additives or ingredients that are in pesticides, also some common household products, whether that's cleaners, polishes, or detergents, also food, drugs, dyes, and solvents. These chemicals can be also used in manufacturing and construction, which means that they could still qualify for Prop 65 warning labels. Also, they could be byproducts of chemical processes, for example, motor vehicle exhaust. And the list of chemicals can vary from quarter to quarter and year to year because OEHHA does remove chemicals as they are found to be safer, or they may add chemicals as new studies come out and find that they are of higher risk. Next slide. There are some situations where the Prop 65 labeling is exempt. Certain government agencies and water utilities do not have to comply with the Prop 65 regulations. Also, if you are a business with 9 or fewer employees, you do not have to be concerned about Prop 65 compliance. Also, if you have any exposures that pose no significant risk of cancer or any type of birth defects or reproductive harm, also any exposures to chemicals that occur naturally in foods are exempt. Then if there's any discharges to drinking water supplies that have no significant amount of the chemical, then you can be exempt from the Prop 65 regulation. Next slide. And now Pavitra will walk us through some of the existing warning rules for Prop 65. Pavitra?
Thank you, Karen. Let's see what are the existing rules of Prop 65 towards short-form warning labels. The warning label should have at least one of the listed chemicals with a triangular yellow warning symbol. The warnings can be categorized into two types, long-form and the short-form warnings. The long-form warning contains the Prop 65 substances names that are present in the product. This label is most preferable and advised by OEHHA sources. However, business can also use the short form of the warning if the product size is too small. The short form warning is shown in the third picture, which is also called as the truncated on the product warning. So the biggest challenge or the cost associated with Prop 65 regulation is identifying the Prop 65 chemicals in the product. That requires material testing, checking with your vendors if Prop 65 chemicals are present. In some cases, where the part is imported from other countries, the importer may not even have an idea of the chemicals used in the product. Yes, this is the problem and takes much time and effort to find out if Prop 65 chemicals are present or not. Many manufacturers and businesses are using the short form warning, citing this as a problem that may be correct or may not be correct, as the current guidelines allow short form warning and there are no explicit term on non-usage. The short form label examples are shown below. Those are simple ones with a warning symbol along with cancer or reproductive harm attached to the sentence. Now the problem comes here is California government felt the short form warning is being misused. Even though many manufacturers used short form warnings due to space constraints, however, there were cases where the manufacturer is pasting the short form warning label even though there are no Prop 65 substances. In some cases where the manufacturers are just pasting the short form labels without even testing the Prop 65 chemicals. So the government felt the whole purpose of the regulation is diluted. Hence, they are trying to propose some new amendments in the short form warnings. So let's see what are the proposed changes on the short form warning label by OEHHA. So as I stated earlier, the current short form warning says a triangular warning symbol with warning along with cancer and following the website. As you could see, there is no chemical mentioned and it was not used properly, which should benefit the end consumer. The proposed short form warning may be provided on the product label by using a triangular warning symbol with warning should be in capital letters and be bold. For exposures listed to carcinogens, replace the words cancer with cancer risk from formaldehyde known to cause cancer exposure following the website, and vice versa for the exposures listed to reproductive toxicants. If a product has an exposure to formaldehyde and lead, which can cause both cancer and reproductive harm, then you should replace the words cancer and reproductive harm with risk of cancer and reproductive harm from formaldehyde, lead, known to cause cancer and reproductive toxicity exposure, following the website www.p65warnings.ca.gov. Let's understand now where we shall use the short form warnings now. Only allow the use of short form warnings on the product with 5 square inches or less of label space, and where a standard warning would not fit. And also, if the package shape or size cannot provide the full length warning as described by OEHHA, then you shall use the proposed short form warning. But keep in mind that any cost, the warning should not appear in a type size smaller than the 6 point. So though it takes 1 year to get effective, if you are a manufacturer, retailer, or a distributor, you should act immediately to avoid sudden surprises. Now, due to the proposed changes, all the manufacturers, whoever is using the short form warnings, shall have a huge impact. They have to either go back to their suppliers to get the Prop65 chemicals present or the test their parts in the laboratory to identify and add them on the warning labels. Now let's see on internet and catalog purchase. So the consumer has the right to receive the warnings mandated by the Act before being exposed to a chemical known to cause cancer or reproductive toxicity or any other birth defects. For internet purchase, a warning that complies with the contents requirement stated by OEHHA and should provide the warning on the product display page or by otherwise prominently displaying the warning to the purchaser before completing his or her purchase. And coming to the catalog purchase, you should clearly state the warning with the item being purchased by the purchaser, where a sign or label is used to provide a warning that should include a consumer information about a product in a language other than English. So the warning must also be provided in that language in addition to English. You should eliminate the use of short form warnings on the internet and catalog purchase, even if the product itself uses a short form warning. Let's see how it will impact the businesses of the current short form warnings. So the primary responsibility for providing the warning for products including food is with the manufacturer, producer, packager, importer, and even the distributor of those products. The regulations therefore recognize that those parties are primarily responsible for providing the warnings, which will impact taking a critical check of your product labels using the current short form warnings, and you will not be allowed to use the short form warning out of an abundance of caution. A manufacturer usually will have a greater knowledge than retailers of a product's chemical content and whether it causes chemical exposures that requires a warning. So as a manufacturer, you must know what specific Prop65 chemicals are in your product so that you can identify a minimum of one appropriate chemical within the warning. You also need to update the warning as per the proposed changes. If you are selling a product online or in catalog, you will get to update these to use the warnings as per the proposed changes. And you will also get to advise your downstream distributors and the retailers to try and equal it. And please try to communicate with your supply chain partner on your product status of Prop65. Though the present short form warning can still be used on products manufactured before the effective date, the proposed changes will be a burden to all the manufacturers worldwide, and you should start collecting their respective details immediately. Handing over to Karen.
Thank you, Pavitra. And now, what are some of the proactive steps that can be taken to avoid surprises like this in the future? Next slide. So first, a warning must include the name of the chemical. So instead of just a very brief warning, you will need to expand on it and include the name of one or more chemicals for each endpoint, whether that's cancer or reproductive toxicity. Unless the named chemical is listed as known to cause both cancer and reproductive toxicity, then it must be identified in the warning. Also, consumer product exposure warnings must be displayed on a labeling, or signage about that product. Also, environmental exposure warnings must be seen in such a way so that it is easily understood by any ordinary individual who is looking to purchase a product or use the product. Next slide. For manufacturers, retailers, and distributors, please note the manufacturers have the primary responsibility, but everyone in the supply chain must do their part to make sure that the regulations are adhered to in order to avoid fines. Manufacturers can choose to put the warning labels on their products, or they can provide notices to their supply chain partners so that they can provide the notices accordingly on the products. Manufacturers can also go into written agreements with retailers and distributors on the labeling process to make sure everyone understands their respective. And now for some of the latest updates regarding Prop 65, I'll turn it over to Sri Vinakata. Sri?
Thank you, Karen. Next slide, please. Coming to the latest updates, the last update that was made was on 19th March 2021 that added two more chemicals, indium tin oxide and molybdenum trioxide, making the total list to 994 chemicals. It also proposes to include marijuana smoke and delta 9 on the list. This is being reviewed currently. In case the new amendments are approved, especially for the short form warnings, it is expected to have 1 year transition period to comply with the new short form warnings. So that seems quite good breathing period. Next slide. So now we understood what are the proposed changes, and from Karen and Pavitra. So now I'm going to talk about the solution for the problem that California Prop 65, as per the new amendment. APA has the software called Green Check to handle the complete product chemical compliances that include Prop 65. Green Check is an online software with multiple product chemical compliance modules for REACH, SKIP, ROSE, Prop 65. It can also manage other chemical regulations through custom survey. It essentially has two types of logins, the customer and the vendor login. The customers can survey their vendors for Prop 65 SKIP, REACH, ROSE data, and vendor can fill it out ideally in the Green Check. Even if the vendor cannot fill in the Green Check, APA has a standard Excel templates where the vendor can fill out, and those can be uploaded by customer on the supplier behalf. Next slide. These are the high-level features of Prop 65 module in our Green Check software. It's a SaaS model, completely web-based, hosted in secure server, and very, very user-friendly software. Customers can survey the vendors from our software with the automated emails and reminders with a set frequency. Customer can also survey the vendors at part level and prepare the part and BOM level Prop 65 compliance warnings. Along with the customer, the vendor shall also have separate login. Once logged, the vendor can see their part numbers and they can start responding to the survey with the Prop 65 substance details. One of the most beautiful feature of Prop 65 module is instant label generation along with the Prop 65 substance name, either at a part or BOM level. Say if a part contains lead and formaldehyde, upon a click, the appropriate warning label shall be generated with lead and formaldehyde included in the warning label. Another fascinating and my favorite feature is automated declaration letter generation for the parts that contain Prop 65 substance. You might receive a lot of declaration letters from your vendors on each row's Prop 65 on their letterhead, indicating whether they are compliant or non-compliant. Similarly, you might also require to submit a declaration letter to your customer on the respective compliances, including the Prop 65 compliance. So typically, the declaration letters requires a typing and pasting the part numbers along with the hazardous substances details and their values. When your part numbers are more and with the bulk of bill of materials level aggregation, it is a time consuming and mistake prone activity. With instant and automated declaration letter, the user has to select the part number and automated letter shall be generated with the standard header, footer, and the list of part numbers, the Prop 65 compliance, as well as the Prop 65 substances that can be downloaded in a Word or PDF and share it across to your customers. And those screens, I will share it in the subsequent slides. Next slide. Excuse me. This is a snapshot of the vendor survey. The customer can tick the check boxes for the compliances that they needed to survey. In this case, we have default options for Prop 65, reach, row, skip, and also for custom survey. Green indicates that the part has been surveyed and a response is received. Blue color indicates the supplier has not answered yet. Below you can see the email draft. One can customize it as per the needs with the standard header and footer. Also, reminders can be set at a regular frequency, either at 1 week, 10 days, or 15 days, whatever as per your need. Next slide. This snapshot shows the type of information that vendor is required to enter once the survey has been requested to vendor by the customer. Whether the part has a label or not, does it contain Prop 65 or not, if it contains what are the substances and what are the emission levels, the supplier can upload even the testing certificates or any other supporting documents for every part that they answer. Next slide. This is the most exciting feature, I said, automated warning label generation. Once the supplier or vendor completes the survey, it will come to customer for the approval. Once approved or even before approval, vendor a customer can select the part number or the BOM number. It will display all the Prop 65 substances that a part or BOM contains, and we can choose the font, label color, and download the label in PDF. This can also be connected to your printer to print the warning labels. The warning symbol size would automatically be adjusted as per the OEHHA standards as per the font size selected. This feature can also be made available at vendor side so that vendor, along with the answering the Prop 65 substances presence, vendor can also instantly print the details of warning and paste the warning label on your product. In this case, the part contains lead, so it can cause a cancer. So accordingly, the label says the product can expose you to chemicals including lead, which is known to state of California causing for reproductive harm. Sorry, lead causes reproductive harm, and accordingly the label is generated. Next slide. This is the declaration feature that I was talking about. This is one of my favorite feature. So I will select in this, you on the top, you can see the Prop65, and next you have another drop down called part number. So once we can select, we can do a multi-select, either the Prop65 or reach or rows, and what are the part numbers or BOM numbers that you can select it from the next drop down. And once if you click on the preview report, it will display all the details on a letter of conformity, or declaration letter, where you can see the part number, whether the Prop65 substance are present or not, the substance names and CAS numbers. We can also make available of the percentages which are present in it. The same case is applicable even to the reach and rows. So if your customer has requested for a Prop65 declaration for 30 part numbers, say, you can select all the 30 part numbers here, and once you have the Prop65 details for these part numbers, for these 30 part numbers in the software, you can just click on those 30 part numbers and generate the declaration report online. So that will print the substance names, CAS number, whether the substance is present or not for every every regulation. So this saves a lot of time and keeps the process intact. Next slide. To conclude, next slide. So to conclude, the proposed amendment shall have a big impact on the manufacturers, whoever is using the existing short form warnings. We strongly encourage manufacturers to start collecting the Prop65 substances from your supply chain, as a new amendment might require the substance names even in the short form of warnings. The amendment may not accept the use of a short form of warnings for internet and catalog warnings. So basically they require the complete substances details. So the product should require the name of at least one of the Prop65 chemicals pertaining to birth defect and cancer to be included in the warning. It might also require in additional languages other than English. And on the last note, please be prepared with the Prop65 substance details for your products to avoid a penalty of USD 2,500 per violation per day per part number. So it is going to be huge. It's better start early and start working with your supply chain to get the Prop65 details. Next slide. APA has a complete product chemical compliance management software for Prop65, Skip, Reach, ROS, and MDS Express to build the MDS data automatically. It's the completely automated conflict mineral software, and the unique software called SIPS can it be sold that handles the regulations pertaining to liquids, gaseous, materials, and substance regulations, especially in the US and Europe. Now our experts will answer your questions.
Yeah, thank you, Shriram. The first question, should I worry about the penalty which you have mentioned for using the existing short form warning? Yes, you must immediately act during this phase-in period itself, because violating the amendments of Prop 65 which failed to provide warning labels to the end consumer will make you a penalty of 2,500 USD per violation per day, as we mentioned in the slides. Okay, do I have to provide a warning in languages other than English? Yes, of course. The Prop 65 warnings must be provided in each language in which consumer information is provided on the product label or packaging. If you use multiple languages on your product packaging, then you should then you have to do the warning labels much similarly to be in the multiple languages. Okay, the type. Okay, the next question here. That's a good question. How do I know if I need to provide a Prop65 warning for a product? First of all, you should check to see if chemicals in the product are created using the product or on the updated Prop65 list. Then you should determine whether the manufacturer or use of the product is likely to expose individuals to listed chemicals by testing. Where APA experts can help you whether the product causes exposure to a listed chemical or not. Question. Can I reformulate a product rather than provide a warning? Yes, but as a manufacturer, you will have a heavy burden to reformulate the whole product, where you can provide a warning label rather than reformulating the products which you have manufactured already. So, there's a question, in a catalog, does each item require a warning if applicable, or can use a reference to the warning on a specific page? No, for a catalog, each item should have a warning. So you cannot for reference a single warning to the specific page. I guess it's the last. Can I still use the existing short form warnings for the internet purchase? No, you should eliminate the use of short form warnings for the internet as well as the catalog in case the new amendment is approved.
Very good, Pavitra.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, I think that we have finished our questions for today. Next slide.
I think there was one more question. When the rule will finally be implemented? So basically, it is still under discussion. We expect the rule to be implemented in a month or so. After that, a transition period of 1 year is expected. That is a good sign. At least the manufacturer has some breathing time.
So that means that if they approve this on June 1st of 2021, then the manufacturers have until June 1st, 2022 to comply, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, understood. Any other questions?
Yeah, that's it. Yes.
Okay, great. Next slide, please. We will be having a survey right after this. Please take the time to answer the questions on the survey. We would love to get your feedback on how we can improve it further. With that, I believe we're finished.